Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I am super delighted. It's season 10 audience, and I promised you that we are having stellar guests in season 10. It's a big deal, and today is no exception. So today I have with us Karim Lateef, who is the Director of Marketing for Arcane Whiskey, and Karim and I go way back, and I've just been watching his journey unfold on LinkedIn and admiring his journey and thought, you know what? I want to hear more about his story and how he got to the driver's seat. So welcome to the show, Karim.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you do as the Director of Marketing today.
Okay. As a Director of Marketing, just to be clear, this was a startup. This is a startup. So the company has been around for maybe 4 years, but it was a single owner. And that owner was doing very small batch whiskeys. Then after maybe a couple of years, another partner was brought on board who I work with now. And that former owner kind of stepped to the back. He's on the board. So right now the company is run by myself, CEO, and our master distiller. So it's a very, very small team. So okay. I would say that I wear many hats, but my day-to-day is really working on the digital strategy and execution, our social media strategy, as well as our messaging, our overall messaging, our DTC platform, making sure that's optimized and ready to go, and maintaining that. Also, all of the events that we execute out in the market to get the word out. In addition to that, customer service, pretty much everything. I am a one-man show when it comes to marketing, customer service, and events at Arcane.
Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back a little bit on your journey. Did you always want to be in marketing or the spirits industry? What did you want to be when you were growing up? What was it you wanted to be?
So this funny story. I always wanted to be a plastic surgeon initially. I always wanted to be an artist. Actually, let me go back before that. I wanted to be an artist. So as a young age, at 6 years old, I was always painting. I was always inspired by like JJ on Good Times, stuff like that. I was always painting and just drawing and just super interested in arts. But my parents, like many parents at the time, there weren't as many arts opportunities as there are now. There was no social media and like that. My parents were just like, you're not going to get any money. You're not going to make any money being an artist. So what do you want to do as a real job? So I figured I would trick them, and I started to get interested in plastic surgery. I figured that's the most creative job in the medical field. So that actually carried me into college. I went to a math and science high school because I wanted to obviously enhance my math and science skills, and I was going to follow that career path. And then I went to college. In my first year of college, I was in a pre-med program, continuing on to be this plastic surgeon. And then once I started to get deep into my second year, I just realized, no, this is not me. I got exposed to marketing, and that's kind of where I ended up landing. But I've always had a passion for art, culture, particularly like the diasporic Black culture. I'm very interested in that, and understanding human connections. So I just didn't have a proper box to put those interests in. I didn't have a label. I didn't see any marketers in my community. I didn't see any advertisers or anybody in that particular field in my industries. I had no label to put on it. And to be ironically, my first exposure to marketing as a profession was watching Marcus Graham on Boomerang. So I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. That's it. Marketing, advertising. Okay, I got it. And that's when I started to really, I fell in love with the profession. So
that's so funny. You brought me back. Two things you brought me back. One is my conversation with my mother when I said I wanted to be a teacher, and she was like, "There is no money in that." So, I went down a different path. I was like, okay, let me find something else to do. And then I'm like seeing Eddie Murphy right now. Maybe I gotta watch Boomerang over the holidays or
I
something.
know, me too. Me too. I gotta watch it again too. It's so nostalgic.
Oh, that's so awesome. So what was the transition like for you once you got your degree and you said, I want to be this marketer? Would you say that you were sort of charting your own course, being in the driver's seat at that time?
I think once I got to college, I've always kind of been in the driver's seat. I started to realize once I started to hone in on my interests, I started to explore those interests more. So to give you an example, like I started to just be vocal about my interests as well. And I think that's one thing I would encourage the listeners to do: be very vocal about your interests. You're interested in music, share it with people. Let people know you're interested in music. Blog about it. Talk about it. So I was very vocal in college about my interest in music, arts, and culture. So that landed me some internships, and this is kind of going to set me up for where I'm at now. So the internships I had were in the music industry. So I interned while I was in college. I interned with Def Jam and Bad Boy, which is Puff P Diddy's company. I interned with them, and it ended up leading me to a job with them as a college rep. So I was responsible for managing the artists when they were in town, taking them around to different stores and radio, things like that, tours as a college student, which was very exciting. And that led me to, I worked at the same time, I worked in a record store. So I worked in Sam Goody, which was in the Superdome.
Oh,
And that gave me a lot of.
old. Is Sam Goody still around?
I know it's not even around anymore. I'm aging myself too. So I worked in the record store at the same time that I was a rep for Def Jam, and all while in college. And after I left there, I ended up working with the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation. So I worked with the Jazz Festival and also S10 Music Festival as an executive assistant. So these were all jobs I had in college, just constantly exploring. Anytime there was opportunity, I raised my hand. I would constantly vocalize that when I'm in the store, sharing my information, sharing my knowledge about what records are hot right now, what records are new. I would start to learn customers. There were a lot of repeat customers. As those customers came in, I would pick their brain, find out what they do. And if I found out they were working at a company I was interested in, I would raise my hand and let them know, hey, if you ever need anybody to do this or volunteer. So I was very, very vocal about what I wanted to do because my intentions then was to kind of learn and explore culture and see what opportunities were out there so that when I graduate, I had a better sense of what type of role I wanted to pursue. And when I graduated, unfortunately, there weren't any opportunities at the time in that field. So I went into a lot of corporate jobs and I was looking for marketing in those corporate jobs. Like I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I did that for about a year and a half. And then I worked for Black & Decker, and I did that for about 2 years. And those were corporate sales jobs. They weren't very creative. It was very, black and white. And I found myself one day in the car crying. Like this is not my life. I'm too creative. And I asked my dad and my stepmom if I could come home for a couple of months to study for the GMAT. And I did that and got my MBA. And that's kind of how I ended up at Diageo and finally getting into marketing. But that was pretty much how I charted my way into, the beverage industry and marketing path, professional marketing path.
I love what you said, Kareem, about being very vocal. I was talking to students at a high school yesterday, and I told them to stop hiding and to amplify their voice and to be what you're saying, be vocal. And also there's this saying yes to opportunities. Sounds like you were very intentional and you said yes to things, even if there were stepping stones to your path.
That's correct. I would not, if I could learn something from the opportunity or build a connection with a person that potentially could lead me to where I'm trying to go, I would take it. And I think that I stretched myself a little bit too much. Fortunately, I was able to maintain my grades and maintain a life, but it was tough because I did raise my hand for a lot throughout my life.
So tell us about your formula for owning your career. Now, looking back, you're an entrepreneur working in a startup today, but you've been in corporate space. You've told us about the arts, and you had all these different experiences. If you think about your journey, what would you say is required to be successful in your career? What's your formula, Kareem?
I would say my formula is I'll start with getting to know what your interests are, getting to know yourself. So asking yourself those questions around what makes you happy, what makes you excited, and you have to do a lot of deep diving to get there, to arrive there. Because I know that's always a challenge to kind of nail down what is it I want to do, what makes me happy. So I spent a lot of time doing a lot of self-assessments, asking myself what are the key things I am excited about, and what must be in along my journey. What qualities about this job need to be there, and what do I need to have in that job to be happy? And I nailed it down to creativity. Those are my values. I had to find something that allows me to express my creativity, something that allows me not to compromise my authenticity. Because like I said, I'm very vocal. I love art. I love Black culture. I love, just in general, the cultural arts. So I need something that has a touch point that leads there. Also, I like connections. I like human connections. I need something that allows me to touch humans or be involved in the human connection. I don't thrive in an environment there's no human connection, where I'm solo, where there is just this monochromatic environment. It needs to be diverse. So diversity was a big thing for me as well. So those are things I started to kind of be very clear on, and that helped me to lead myself to where I need to go. So I always say one of my pieces, being firm on those values and your destination, but being flexible on how you get there. So I think that is a very key ingredient to getting to where you want to go, because you have to be very adaptable. Because things may not show up how you want it to show up. You may have to do some detours and twists and turns, but guess what? You learn a lot along the way. You build more connections. You eventually arrive where you want to go. So I think you have to be very clear on that.
I love that. You eventually arrive to where you want to go. And sometimes it's hard to have that in mind, especially, if you're in jobs that you feel are stepping stones, but it's not working the way you imagined. How have you handled taking risk in your career?
I would say, I'm not going to say that I've always been this most mature person. I've taken risk and I failed and it sucked and it knocked me down for a little bit psychologically. But I think what I've evolved to understanding is that there really is no failure. There's really just lessons that you learn, and it's connections that you build, and nothing is permanent. Everything is about moments, and really just capturing these moments and really extracting what you can from these moments. So for me, I started to look at everything as kind of moments that I get to experience, and that kind of helped me to deal with taking the risk, because I know that I'm always going to bounce back. So for me, I think if you're in a job, I think that it's great, if you can, to be entrepreneurial while you're in that job. And I think that that's something that's helped me with the risk. So I would always have a job, but also exploring other projects and other opportunities outside of that job, so that I can start to kind of mitigate that risk, by keeping something that I'm having that's permanent, but also getting into something that's new or potentially could lead to another job, or it could be a stepping stone. And I'll give you an example. When I was with Diageo, I was during my regional marketing manager position, which was one of my final roles there, where I was managing the marketing strategy and execution across the Mid-Atlantic, which was DC, Maryland, New Jersey, and Delaware. That was a job that I did for 4 years. It was kind of a job that I can kind of do with my eyes closed, to be honest. It was really something that I had already been doing, and to some degree in previous roles. This was just at scale. This was just multiple markets. So I was looking for something a little bit deeper into the marketing function, something in brand marketing. So I kept raising my hand. I kept, talking to brand directors, letting them know, hey guys, I have this background in music. I have this background in TV. If you ever have any platforms, any programs, anything that's coming up that you need expertise in that area to help you drive that forward, please reach out to me. So I ended up getting pursued for a secondment, which was, a secondary job with Smirnoff to help create a TV show with Smirnoff, which was the first time the company ever did it.
That. Yeah,
Master of the Mix.
Yeah. Wow, it's been a while. I remember that now.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So I was brought up to New York from DC to be the associate brand manager on that particular program, to help build that TV show. And it really took me back, because while in college, I raised my hand to become a TV producer at a public access TV station. I had no idea how to produce TV shows. I had no idea how to floor direct, but I knew that I'm a fast learner, and I did not turn it down. I trusted my intuition. And those skills I picked up from college doing that 1 year at the public access TV station helped me to understand what was happening at Smirnoff. So everything is connected. So that's why I say it's very important that you extract what you can from these moments, because they always seem to come back. It's part of your tool belt that you'll need in the future to access for future roles. So it was all connected.
That's awesome. I completely forgot it. You're bringing me back. So what I'm noticing about our conversation and what you're sharing, Kareem, is that you need to know how to package what you have, though, because you were we're going back to being vocal. You were sharing, but you were packaging it in a way that said, here's how I can help you, not just here, I could do XYZ, but if you ever need that support. I love that. And I think some of us don't know how to package our brilliance so that others will take a chance on us and give us these opportunities. What resources helped you to fine tune how you sell yourself? Because part of this is selling, I think, too, being able to properly sell yourself.
I think for me, just being a student of culture, I think culture has really helped me, because I think that, I think hip hop artists don't really get a lot of credit for what they do in terms of their poetry, the way they sell themselves, the way they present themselves. And I think that just me studying hip hop, me studying a lot of like entertainment, studying social media, early stages of social media, studying how people package their skills up, promote their voices on social media. And then studying also great orators like Malcolm X, and even some of the ministers and, great professors. I watch a lot of YouTube and videos and just seeing how people articulate their brilliance, articulate their interests and skills. So I tend to study how people communicate. And that's in real life, virtually, in written form. So I'm obsessed with human communications and behavior. So that's kind of what I do. I pay very close attention to how people communicate, non-verbally and verbally.
I love that. I love that. So are there specific people that you think, you mentioned Malcolm X, just trying to hone in on additional, if it's podcasts or books that really influence your thinking to help our community?
I think that I read a lot of books. I think that some of the books one of the books in particular that really helped me really was a book that I discovered by chance. It was called The Way of the Owl. And this is a book that really talks about like conflict within yourself, conflict within the world, and how to deal with it gracefully, how to, navigate through the world without losing your values. And it really just helped me in centering. I think that book wasn't necessarily about communications, but it really just helped me with my self-awareness. That's a big part of communication, self-awareness. As I mentioned, just understanding who you are, understanding your values, creating that anchor, so that because the world is chaotic, business world is chaotic, and if you're not anchored and centered, you'll float everywhere. You'll take on opportunities that don't make sense. You get lost in it. So really, spending that time anchoring yourself in your understanding who you are and understanding how best to communicate, how best to engage with people. That book kind of helped with that. Other books, I would say autobiography. This is not necessarily another communications book, but autobiography of Malcolm X was really a great book for me. The Alchemist.
That's a great book.
Yes, it's a phenomenal book. It's a phenomenal book. And I think that's all that comes. I have so many books that run through my head right now. Yes.
No problem. No problem. You gave us a sample and we appreciate it. I'm a big fan of, I think it's Paulo Coehlo for the Alchemist.
Yes, it is.
Mistaken. But yeah, I have a nice library at home myself. So what went on in your mind to say, time to bet on yourself? Because you've been on a corporate path or organizations for a number of years. And I know you said you did the side thing as well, but what's different now where you decided it's time to become that entrepreneur more of an entrepreneur versus the intrapreneur?
I wanted equity. I think that was the biggest thing for me at this stage in my life. I think it's very important to own something. And for me, we work together at Diageo, so we know each other's work. And for me, I've been very intimately involved in some of the meteoric rise of a lot of the brands at Diageo on the ground and strategically. And I watched these brands grow, and I just noticed. And same with Pernod Ricard. I've been I've been a very integral part of the success of some of the new brands as well as some of the legacy brands that needed a refresh. Because of my talents, I've been a major ingredient to that success. However, there was no permanence to that. I was laid off by both companies, and that trauma from being laid off and being just passionately connected to what I did, and it being so much of my identity, kind of just ripped the floor from underneath me. So I didn't like that feeling. So for me, I just made a promise to myself that everything I do in the future, I'm going to make it a attempt to make sure I have skin in the game, make sure that I have equity in what I'm doing, so that at least I can walk away with something and not have to start over again. In addition to that, I just want to continue to create and produce and build on my own, or in collaboration with other people, where I have a more firm seat at the table. So this commitment I have to equity and ownership is really around seeing not only myself suffer from layoffs and reorgs but also seeing other people I know, other talented people I know, getting shuffled around like music chairs, and it's just like it's time to make that change. So that's kind of what drew me to this mindset I have now.
I love that. So what are you going to do with your seat at the table? How do you plan to effectively navigate the table? Any suggestions on navigating the table?
That's something I'm still learning. Because what I'm learning is embracing the power that I have, embracing the knowledge that I have, the connections. And I think that's the biggest thing. The world that we work in is really based on connections and based on access to information and resources. And I'm learning more and more of that. And what I want to do is pay it forward. So what I want to do now is really continue to pay it forward in terms of sharing knowledge, sharing access, sharing inspiration to get more people to follow this path. So that's kind of how I'm using my seat at the table now. I'm trying to, because I have a voice, and I've always had a voice, at least for the past decade, I just want to be very intentional about how I use that voice. I don't want to waste any time online. Like, that's my thing. I'm very intentional about what I do online, the time I spend with people, the time I spend digitally, virtually. And I want people to walk away either more inspired, more, feeling more brilliant, feeling more beautiful, or feeling a lot better about what they're doing with their life than when they arrive. So that's my commitment I have to myself.
I love that. I love that. Mission, vision, values, authenticity, diversity. Oh, you have inspired our audience. I want to thank you for being on the show. Any parting words? Any parting thoughts?
I think the biggest thing is I want to tell your audience to promote themselves, tell your story. A lot of what I talked about was me just raising my voice, raising my hand. Your voice matters, your presence matters, representation matters. So I think, that's very important, that you're not afraid to turn up your authenticity and to preserve yourself in everything that you do. So that's what I would like to share with the audience.
What just came up for me, I was like, I maybe I'll call the episode "Turn Up Your Authenticity." It sounds like the title of a book. And I always like to ask my guests, if you were to write a book and come up with a title for your career body of work, what would that be?
That might be it. Turn up your authenticity.
It sounds really good, though. It sounds really good. Yeah.
I like that.
I like it too. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So that might be the title of this episode, because that inspires me as well. I appreciate you so much. I thank you for living your value and saying yes, because you said you are intentional about how you use your voice. And so thank you for coming on to the show and being generous with your expertise and knowledge. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Likewise. And I appreciate you thinking of me, and I'm honored to be a guest. Thank you.
Awesome. If our listeners would like to get connected with you or stay connected, how can they do so?
I keep everything very simple. So it's just my name, Kareem Lateef. You can find me on Twitter, find me on LinkedIn, KareemLateef.com, Instagram. Instagram, I have a personal page, Kareem Lateef. Also have my company, Craft Brand Theory, on there. So yes, either one of those.
Okay, awesome. Well, Kareem Lateef, thank you for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.